I'm Enshohma, and thank you very much for joining us for this Halloween episode of Enshohma Likes Giant Monsters. Yeah, we're talking about the character of Gilanbo, not to be mistaken with Columbo, although they definitely have similar hips. Gilanbo is one of the many alien villains who've shown up on the 1996 to 97 Japanese superhero series Ultraman Tiga, which was the first successful revival of Ultraman in the 1990s, after a kind of like loose 10 years of Ultra projects that were relatively obscure and equally unsuccessful. Now, because of which Ultraman Tiga was fairly popular. But one of the things that I don't much care for Ultraman Tiga is just how boring the alien invaders are. You know, the typical thing you see in a lot of science fiction where the alien is emotionless, tells mankind how inferior they are, that the Earth belongs to us, your bases belong to us, or our bases are, or whatever. But there are exceptions to the rule, and one of those major exceptions is Gilanbo, who appeared in Episode 8, October 26, 1996. First off, I do want to say On a Halloween Night is one of the more fun episodes of Ultraman Tiga, because it is basically the rare Japanese Halloween episode. And as you may probably know, Halloween, while it is a holiday celebrated in Japan, it's exceptionally niche, dismissed as sort of just kind of a foreign fad or a foreign trend. With that said, back in 96, I think Tsuburaya Productions were trying to think ahead of time, and they thought Halloween was going to get more and more popular in Japan. So in a weird way, this story that takes place in a fictional near future is trying to predict the future. It didn't really work out, but as far as like Halloween spirit goes, they really do a good job capturing the, just the fun of trick-or-treating. People just everywhere in costume, even the lead heroes of the Earth Defense Force, called Guts in this series. What happens in this episode is that on Halloween night, an interdimensional alien/witch named Gilanbo enters our world through her spaceship, as you do. And apparently Gilanbo is an evil alien witch who has appeared on different points of Earth, always on Halloween night, kidnapping a bunch of children, drinking the dreams out of their head, because in her words, I'm paraphrasing here, children have the sweetest dreams, not like the rotting dreams of adults. And then after basically drinking the dreams out of the kids' ears, she basically discards the kids into a pocket dimension she has control over, which looks like an abandoned Japanese park in the middle of the daytime. But this time she showed up in Japan and messed with the wrong people. And by wrong people, I mean Daigo, who is our lead hero of this series, the titular Ultraman Tiga. The members of Guts, they're checking out a weird signal, which of course is connected to Gilanbo showing up. And they're basically on patrol, but because it's Halloween night and they don't want to cause any panic amongst the citizens, they decide to go dress up and just join the trick-or-treaters, incognito, if you will. So Daigo, dressed up as like a kind of a pantaloon pumpkin ripoff of a Disney pumpkin character, he sees that there's a woman in a rubber witch mask and outfit, kind of just giving out large lollipops for free to the various little kids. But then he notices that the witch has no reflection whatsoever in the mirror. And instead of being a vampire, of course, she's an interdimensional being, but that's suspect enough for Daigo to follow the witch to her place of origins, which appears to be a haunted house, dilapidated house, but it's actually her pumpkin spaceship. But anyways, he goes into the haunted house to follow the witch. Meanwhile, the witch has left behind a kind of duplicate or clone that looks just like Daigo. And because the Guts members are not the smartest they're relatively smart compared to a lot of Ultra teams of the 70s and 80s, but they still just take it at face value. That's just Daigo being creepy and weird inside a pumpkin costume. So anyways, Daigo gets captured and is put into the pumpkin spaceship's main control room. So Daigo is kept prisoner in this discotheque in a huge glass tube when Gilanbo in her witch form appears and basically drinks one of the poor little kids she's already captured. I don't know if it's from a previous year or earlier from the night, but anyways, once the kid has the dreams taken out, they're basically zombified, hence the little white faces and the weird little jester caps. And they're sent to the graveyard of dreams. So yeah, Gilanbo says that she's basically just in town for a quick snack. And she'll leave aboard her dimensional ship when it's all over. But she's not going to let Daigo stop her evil plans. Now, the lollipop she gave to all those kids beforehand, they kind of help in the mind control abilities. Rina, a female member of Guts, as well as sort of Daigo's best friend / love interest, she was lucky enough to get one of these lollipops thanks to thanks to a very generous trick-or-treater. And because of that, she also falls under the control, which the other members of Guts are able to discover her before she leaves the base. Realizing that there's something up, they decide to try to follow all these kids who are walking to a vacant tree-filled lot where the pumpkin spaceship rises up from the ground. Now, while Daigo is able to get his transformation item, Gilanbo is confronted by the other Guts members who basically shoot her off the top of her pumpkin with their laser guns, and she reveals her true form, that as the giant monster Gilanbo. So Daigo transforms on Ultraman Tiga, and it is a relatively fun battle, although because Gilanbo is a child-eating psychopath from another dimension, Ultraman Tiga eventually has to destroy her in the end. So after beating her up and kind of roughing her up a bit, she's too weak to fly away or to move as fast as she usually does. So she does this kind of funny little, hover jog into the air. I guess it was her own attempt to try to escape. That or was played for laughs, and if so, I don't think it really was executed too well. So Ultraman Tiga destroys Gilanbo, and with it, I think the kids are freed from mind control, and I think the pumpkin spaceship is also destroyed in the process. Now, just a quick note on Gilanbo herself. While I like her a lot as a character, she's very fun, she's very campy, and that's a big credit to the voice actors and suit actors who I hope I showed off in the title information card towards the beginning of this episode. While she's very fun, I'm not too hot about her design, because it is sort of like a more complicated, less appealing version of Zeton. But what I do like is that you don't see the in-joke at first, but she's basically based on a pair of scissors. And then once you know it, it's like, oh, now I see what they were going with, a scissors motif in the design. And the suit actor who plays her giant form, at least he brings a lot of personality to the creature, giving her a kind of mischievous, devilish attitude, compared to her human disguise of the Interdimensional Witch, which is deliberately played as sort of an old crone who can barely walk and moves in a very deliberate manner. I also appreciate that Gilanbo is a pretty good martial artist, along with a bunch of other bizarre powers she has. And this is the thing about a lot of the one-shot Ultraman monsters, is that some of them are just so fun and neat that even if they are very niche in what they are and what they do, in this case a Halloween villain, I just can see Gilanbo returning in another episode. Just keep the witch motif, the fact that she's a weird old lady from another dimension, and have her do other like weird supernatural things. Like, maybe she tries to start a cult, or maybe she becomes the manager of an evil band that she's going to use to summon demons. Weird supernatural stuff like that. Which I think is a good idea because a lot of Ultraman monsters are either just mutant creatures, ancient dinosaurs, alien invaders, and when you do have outright fantasy or supernatural creatures, they're more in tune with like Japanese mythology, like the whole yokai thing. So having something that's a little more Western bent, even if the being itself is sort of an insectoid take on a pair of scissors in design and appearance, I think would not be a bad idea. With that said, I do unfortunately have to mention some of Gilanbo's other appearances, which there is almost none. A sort of target in the shape of Gilanbo appeared in an episode of Ultraman Dyna. Unfortunately, at the time of this recording, I couldn't find the episode itself, and I don't know if it was like a virtual reality simulation, a hologram, or just a picture of Gilanbo that they're just shooting. But yeah, that's at least some kind of reference of her into that series. She probably made an appearance in a Japanese Ultraman stage show, which is kind of commonplace for a lot of monster suits that don't get recycled or refurbished for future Ultraman appearances. But I could not find any pictures, nor do I have any memories of finding pictures of Gilanbo on stage. I have to mention, and again, this is Commissioner noting it, her appearance in the Kaiju Girls series, which was a weird spin-off from the early 2000s when Tuber Eye Productions, kind of needing money, decided to make humanized or anthropomorphized cute or sexy women versions of the Ultraman monsters. And this thing was a little more successful than it should have been. From what I understand, based on the Wikipedias and various fan wikis related to Ultraman, the Kaiju Girls version of Gilanbo tried to steal the dreams of other Kaiju Girls on Halloween night, fellow students at a Monster Girl Academy. But for the most part, she failed because the various dreams of the girls were just way too weird. And considering how racy and risque the manga apparently was, I don't even want to think about it. But there you go. And like I said, I do like Gilanbo very much, and I'm very happy that her episode exists. It is a very fun Halloween special, and I think it's probably the strongest of all the Halloween adjacent kaiju or tokusatsu episodes out there. Another thing about Gilanbo that's interesting, the creator-writer of this episode stated that he originally thought of Gilanbo as sort of just a basic threat based on old age and elderly women. A monster who I think was supposed to steal the youth from various children. But ultimately, he realized that may be a bad idea because it would give a kind of negative perception of the elderly in Japan. So while she's still kept as sort of an old crone, the idea of making her just basically a Halloween villain I think was a smart move. Weirdly enough, though, revisiting the episode kind of reminded me of the magic that you kind of lose every year the older you get with Halloween. When you're a kid, Halloween is just the best. It's like Christmas, but you get to dress up as scary monsters and indulge in the dark side. And while this is definitely kind of a idealized and perhaps overly cute version of what Halloween used to be, it was still very nostalgic, for lack of a better word, just watching, an episode that kind of showed the streets filled with kids dressed in all sorts of costumes, store-bought, homemade, really homemade. Just getting candy everywhere while a real supernatural monster is still there, kind of giving you an idea that magical creatures, goblins, ghosts, vampires are actually enjoying the holiday alongside with you. And the older I get, I do have to admit that Halloween does kind of get less and less special. And that also ties into the fact that I, an older, cynical adult, is just a part of the problem. Because I now look at Halloween with cynical eyes. As Gilanbo herself says, parents have the worst dreams. They're rotting and old and not as tasty as the dreams of young children. And while she said that from a pretty nefarious mindset, because, she's drinking the brains of kids for crying out loud, there is a small irony of truth in there. But yeah, ultimately though, as bittersweet as talking about this character may be, I appreciate she exists, because if there's one thing about Halloween that still kind of brings a lot of wonder and nostalgia, just revisiting a lot of bizarre specials and episodes and movies late at night, and I can definitely say Gilanbo has made a major winner in that regard. And while I don't think we'll ever see her again in a future episode, considering that Tuburai Productions is in a much healthier spot as far as world exposure and availability, especially compared to 1996, who knows? Maybe Tuburai Productions will make a brand new Gilanbo suit, and we'll have a special Happy Halloween greetings on their YouTube channel. For fun. Dark, terrible, brain-eating fun.